Where it's from. Huh. Uh, This is the January 7th meeting of the Portsmouth Energy Advisory Committee. We meet the first Wednesday of the month and take the roll. Kevin Schreck.
Here.
And D'Antonio, present. Peter Somsich.
Yes.
Tracy Cameron.
Here.
And from the Sustainability Committee, Fred Calcineri.
Here.
And Tom Rooney.
Here.
We're missing Betsy Blaisdell. This is our first meeting as a permanent committee. So the ordinance passed the second to last meeting of the year. And it's in the city ordinances, if anyone cares to read it. Our mission is to advocate for cleaner, lower cost energy for the city and oversee community power. Research ways that the city can use energy more efficiently, and research ways the whole community can use energy more efficiently and in a cleaner way. So excited about that. We also submitted a year-end report, which was in the council packet of December 20th. If you want to take a look, it's very similar to the material that I gave to everybody. Instead of a chart, it was a narrative, but same material. So that was great, and the mayor expressed his appreciation for all of your work, and so expressed his appreciation that we focus on lower cost as well as sustainability. A couple of other things. Tracy wrote me about Button Up. Did you want to fill us in?
Only that we've done a couple of button ups. I didn't think we were going to be able to get one for this year, but they said they have funding. So working at the library, anyone has suggestions in terms of better to do it. I think we've done them in April, we've done them in the fall. We can only do one. Does anyone have any thoughts on timing for that? Is that
For the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think one year we did two in the calendar year, but I'm not even sure we'll be able to get one. They get funding for the year and they said we can be on the waiting list.
Is that the New Hampshire Saves or who sponsors that?
I would think April.
You think April?
The fall is too late to take actions for the coming winter.
And people are looking at their bills, like they've seen their March
Yeah.
bill, so.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thought.
Okay.
Good. And we'll work with you on free and friendly publicity
Yeah,
as much as we can get.
yeah. In the past, the library's been very good about promoting it through the library, and we're co-hosted it with them. And so I'm working with them. They've had some staff turnover and hoping to do that this year also.
Seacoast Can has also promoted it,
Yes, yes,
our community mailing list.
yes. They're very helpful with that. Yeah, so yeah, any other thoughts on good places to promote it? One we had at the community center, community campus, thinking that might draw in more people from that part of town. I don't know that it was really successful in that, but we'd probably do the next one at the library again.
Tracy too, the last one had someone from Eversource, which I thought was effective. The prior one, I think it was just the speaker for New Hampshire Saves. I don't know if there was someone from
That's true,
Eversource.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it was good to have.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We talk a little more precisely about the programs.
Yeah, the Eversource guy was good. Never forget the infrared image of all the heat coming out of a little 1-inch hole in the roof. So that was good. And we'll get it in the city newsletter and things like that.
Great,
Uh,
yeah.
Tracy, I would just suggest that in light of the various political winds from Washington and Concord, it's more important than ever to focus on energy efficiency. because those are things we can actually do something about. We can't force them to give us money for a solar field and on a landfill or somewhere else, but we can do something ourselves when it comes to energy efficiency. So I think this is the kind of year that would be particularly good to focus on.
I agree, and, I don't know how to kind of formulate this, thinking maybe trying to get a subgroup who might brainstorm on this, but ways to promote that better. And I'm also volunteering in Exeter, they have a window dressers, I don't know if you've heard of that program, but workshop, and see if that's something we might be able to, bring to this area, so.
So more to come on that. Thank you for the initiative, Tracy, and
I was just gonna say that York, Maine has an incredibly good program. And we might want to tap into some of the things they're doing. It's a different state, I grant it, but we don't need the state to help us with energy efficiency.
Yeah,
So
I
if they
agree.
have something better to offer and
Yeah.
that we could use, that would be great.
Yeah, they actually have coaches that'll go out to people's homes, I think, they have coaching, yeah, so. Great thought.
I also wanted to mention that the planning board has recommended some revisions to the solar panel part of the zoning code. Maybe you could just fill us in on that.
I can summarize, you can pull it up if you want, but we talked about the solar zoning amendments maybe in September. FMLA came to discuss those, and since that time, the planning board has taken them up. They've reviewed and pushed forward some amendments to city council, so you'll see those on the agenda this month for first reading. And they're basically to remove barriers and promote solar for residential solar in the city. So it's added into the sustainability objectives, the promotion of alternative energy sources such as solar and wind. We've clarified that it's permitted as an accessory use to permitted residential uses anywhere in the city. Added some definitions for solar energy systems, including ground mounted and roof mounted solar. And then also proposes to permit commercial solar with a conditional use permit in certain districts in the city. So that helps to promote and
Julie, do you know if there's anything in there regarding protecting people's solar energy that already have it? I mean, I have a colleague, a friend of mine who is in that situation where he has an empty lot next to him. He has solar panels on his roof. And he's kind of concerned about, well, if somebody can build something next to me that covers up my sun.
Yeah.
That takes away a certain value from his house.
yeah, so we would have to look at like height restrictions, I think.
Well,
To
it could,
change
it
that.
doesn't have to be necessarily, if it's oriented in a way that doesn't take away anybody's solar, it's fine, so.
Yeah.
But in any case, it has to do with taking away the sunshine, not what the height of the building is.
It doesn't contemplate that at this time. I think we would have to look into how we would do that.
Because if we're promoting solar and at the same time we're not protecting it, seems to me that's contradictory.
It seems like a sticky one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'd be open to suggestions as to how we would do that, but haven't contemplated that yet.
so this will be voted January 20th
Should be for first reading.
for first reading. So that will be in the packet, and
Yeah.
support from this committee would be great.
And this wasn't in the meeting packet tonight, because we just got it yesterday, I think, but I can send it to you, I can share, can add it to the meeting and then share it if you'd like.
And it is posted on the planning board.
Okay,
Meeting.
I'll just put that.
This came before the planning board a couple months ago. There was a question about whether like, solar panels over a parking area are considered roof mounted or ground mounted? You get an answer on that?
I wasn't made aware of that question, but I can ask Peter Stipp if he's had an answer to that.
I think it, as I read the ordinance, it makes a lot of progress on ground mounted. Gives, it gives shape to how people can do that. It makes some of the residential districts, it makes rooftop solar by right. Am I correct?
Yeah, and that's how we were practicing it already, but it helps to clarify that it's permitted as an accessory use.
Right.
Residential.
That's the better term of permitted as an accessory use. So those are all. Yes, Tracy.
So to lend our support, would we be looking for sort of a vote or a letter, or how would that be best put forth?
I guess it's up to counselor. If you want to do it as a committee, or you could submit individual.
Individually.
Whoever you wanted to.
If you felt well briefed enough, we could entertain a motion tonight, or we could do it for the first week of February.
It's already been before the planning board?
It has,
Right.
yeah,
They-
recommended it.
See, so second reading would probably,
Sometime in February.
Yeah. so maybe let's distribute that and we can put it on our agenda. So that everybody's had a chance to read it, maybe have even suggestions that could be amendments. And then our big topic tonight is that we have new rates from CPC&H. I think some of the questions we have as a committee to wrestle with are understanding what's going on with these higher rates and then how we communicate this to the community. How do we be as candid and open as we can, as useful and we should give about this? I did send you all some slides for is used. What's that? Tom, you may have input as well.
I wasn't at the 18th. I didn't think that I had that meeting though. So what I have is pretty much the same, but yeah.
See is, Eversource has come out of the gate with an 11.3 cent rate. Coalition is still trying to build back reserves that were depleted last year. The whole failure of the contract with the biomass plant. So if you look at this, the supply cost of goods sold, so to speak, is 10.93 cents. The actual energy is 8.6. Then there's pieces that are added to that. The big thing down highlighted box bottom is the 2.05 cents for the reserves. You track that out, we're at 12.6 cents a change. And that's the major effort. So, the rates are higher because strategically, we've got to build back the reserve. The coalition has to build back the reserve because that lowers borrowing costs for their line of credit. And they need that to be able to do the financing activity. And ultimately to have 120 days reserve is their goal, which is about 30 million. If you flip to Stefan, if we can get the pages, financial forecast. When these are all the various rate tables. Keep going until we get to the, yeah, cash. Let's look at the 95% likely case. More slides ahead.
I don't think that's what that means, Counselor, 95% likely. It's
Well,
not a probability,
it's a-
it's a percentile.
Okay,
And it's,
thank you.
this is, they're running lots of scenarios.
Well,
And the P5 means that there's a 95% chance that that's packet of numbers would be not accurate. P50 means it's kind of the median, meaning that 50% of the scenarios are less, 50% are higher, and P95 is that 95% of the time the numbers are less. So I think the P50 is what they're
okay,
kind of zeroing in on, meaning
Let's
it's
go back.
kind of the middle.
Go
Meaning
back.
of all, they're running a lot of, scenario analysis and all sorts of, lots and lots of times. And basically, I think they're saying that 50% of the time it's less, 50% is more. I think that's kind of their target. If I don't know for certain, but I think that's what it is.
Standard deviation calculations, are you saying?
I don't think it's standard deviation. I can't remember the name of the analytics, but
2 sigma,
um,
3 sigma.
but it's a percentile, not probability.
It looks like the median.
It is. The P50 is your median.
That's the median.
Yeah.
So
That's here nor there, but I think
Yeah,
that's just what just wanted to point that out.
I appreciate that. Sure. Yeah, because I obviously didn't have a full understanding.
No.
But 12-month aggregate net cash flow after the credits and everything. That's building back the reserves. And they've got interest expense and so forth. But $6 million toward that 30 million goal is where it's up. It's the coalition up, man.
It's a little, I don't know, not close to their numbers now, but even with the higher rates, they're still drawing down, at a point there, they've got $20 million.
Yeah.
Extended and a line of credit
Yeah.
goes up to 23 million.
Yeah.
Big numbers.
Yeah, it is.
So does that mean we could expect that reserving activity for the next few years till that's paid off?
Well, I think the decision is how quickly. So it seems like the recommended rate is to just take the big hit right now. And then get out of this revolving line of credit, because like this year, in this scenario, we'd pay $1.2 million in interest.
Mhm.
So if we can take the higher rate for the year, not just this period, but for the year, then get out of having a line of credit at all and build up the reserves, but not necessarily have to take this hit.
Mhm.
I mean, I think ideally this is the year that, we would remain above default rates, but.
There's a question I had. What was the rate assumption August through January of 2027? And I think you just answered it that
Yeah. Expect.
the rate is going to stay high for another year.
Right. Obviously, if you don't have to use the line of credit, you're saving money, and that can can result in lower prices long term. And yes, it will probably stay, as you say, Tom, take the hit for the whole year. You know, that if it were a business, you'd have ways to have paid in capital, but there's no way to have paid in capital. It has to be recovered through rates, unfortunately. So, this is the picture that we get. And I spoke with Jackson. You know, right now, they're estimating by March, they're gonna have 194,000 customers. Roughly 40% of the state's residential load. You know, so far, in spite of prices being higher than Eversource and Unitil and Liberty, has not been too much erosion. On the Eversource side, they had rates that didn't cover their costs some time back, tune of $4 million or so. There's a lot of effort to see that Eversource reconciles that swiftly so that the market signals in this competition are real, valid. And Aspari told me that they went to the PUC to push that, and in the case of Unitil, the PUC agreed that utility prices too low and their costs come in higher, they have to reconcile in 6 months in the next rate period. So if that's what the PUC decided in the Unitil case, hopefully that's what they decide in the Eversource case. And that could result, Jackson thought, in Eversource having higher rates to make that adjustment.
I think I saw at the end of this PowerPoint, though, that those rates are still only in the 12s. 12.3. At the end of that, there's a last slide had the utility rates.
Where is this found?
This was another email
Sent it out today.
that Stephanie sent. There was a link.
Counselor sent it out.
It was,
First thing this morning, I think. It's also in the board packet. For CPC, and
yeah.
Thank you.
December board.
Oh, no, before that.
Yeah, Unitil's rate is 12. Liberty's 13. I don't know what went into Liberty's rate. There's 13, so.
So Unitil has a residential rate that changes monthly?
Yeah, there's some customers that are on that. I don't know what.
Oh, it's a different, oh, I see, yeah, they have two, got it.
And it's not just, I mean, the mid-size business customers rates are higher than Eversource as well.
Yeah, I know.
So they're gonna have a tough, I mean, most of those customers have supply contracts anyway.
Third party, yeah.
It's a market that CPC is gonna have a tough time cracking rates.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of customers in that space.
Yeah, I think they were hoping to by this point.
Well, I noticed the new rates for the 100% clean also changed by the month. All the other levels, basic plus, remain the same over the whole year, over the 6-month period. But according to, see,
For Eversource?
no, for us.
No, must be looking at the commercial.
Well, let's see. Okay, I'm looking at something that John sent out today. That was the December 18th rates, and under yeah, so the 100%.
Slide number is that?
Yeah.
Like six, okay.
Six.
Yeah.
So compare that to what I got on December 22nd from the announcement from our on 22nd of December. There it says that February, March is the same, April, May changes, June changes, and July changes. So I'm not sure which one is correct.
You're looking at Unitil?
No, this is just Eversource. This is just for the Eversource category.
Residential R class.
For 100, for Clean 100.
On slide 6?
No, this was a different document.
Oh.
The client, slide, yeah, slide 6, gives one rate for all the months,
Oh, okay.
but this other one I received previous,
CBA utility class rates, Clean 100.
that's the same, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, on their press release, as Clean 100, 17.66.
And for the all months.
Yeah, flat.
Yeah, they just have,
Okay, well.
it says
that's something
February
I
1st
have-
to July
I have two
31st.
different graphs and one changes every month and one stays constant. So I'm wondering which one is correct.
Well, I think this is what the board approved, right?
Yeah, it's the one, it's one
Yeah.
number.
All right, good. I'm glad to hear it. Because all the other classes were the same. When I compared these
Yeah.
graphs, they're all the same for every month, except for the 100% clean. So I didn't know why that was different.
Must have just been a
Okay,
error.
just wanted to clarify that.
Now, there's just one little, I don't remember, but one, you mentioned the migration back. And, regulated utilities, when there's a rate change, they have to communicate to the end use customer. They do the press releases, they do the web, the website updates, the media is all over it. But they also communicate to the end use customer through on-bill notifications. There's a requirement for a bill insert, and a lot of people don't get a paper bill anymore, but electronically that bill insert is delivered to to the customer's application. So there's direct communication, good or bad, to the end use customer. CPC&H doesn't have to do that. All right. They issue a press release. Typically rates go up in the winter. They're issuing it over the holidays. No one sees it. They update their web. They tell people they can sign up for notifications, but I'd be interested in how many of the 200,000 customers are signed up for notifications. So I have a real concern that a good percentage of the customers that are participating in Community Power don't realize what their rate is compared to Eversource. And that's a concern of mine, that we've swept all these people into these programs, and then there's just this broad brush communication around that the rate has changed. And if you didn't catch it, 3 days after Christmas in a press release, and I was looking today, I was Googling CPC&H rate increase February 1st, WMUR, nothing. Union Leader, nothing.
Yeah.
It's just somehow these high rates by Community Power aren't getting attention. And we have customers that I don't think, if you surveyed and went out and asked 5 of your neighbors what's CPC&H's rate compared to Eversource as of February 1st, I'd be interested to see what response we get from our neighbors. They just don't know. And the Community Power was launched with such positive fanfare because the rates were in the 20s. We went live with a rate of 15, and it was like, wow, this is fabulous. And I just think I've talked to friends of mine who just assume because it's Community Power that it's less than the utility now, and don't realize we're 30% higher as of February 1st. We're 20-something% higher right now.
That's $20 a month.
Yeah, and I mean, just even on a percentage, 30% higher. And that's why I think in part there isn't more migration, because I just don't think people know.
Yeah, and this concern, this has really been nagging at me. Because we're an energy committee to serve our residents.
Right, right.
Um, So one thing I'm relieved about is the PHA, the Portsmouth Housing Authority, who has our low income folks, is on a separate third party contract. So,
They have a small percentage of the low income customers in the city though. You know, there's a lot that aren't living in those properties.
yeah, and so my
Low income.
concern is how do we reach folks who can't afford a hybrid?
Well, just in general, the low back, because I was reading, you know, unfortunately I missed the meeting, but I don't know what kind of sincere interest you got from Jackson and the other guy around the low income customers. It sounds like they were saying, you know, maybe your library knows, maybe your social agencies know, maybe somebody else knows. I didn't get the impression that there was any sense of urgency from the coalition to really identify out of their 200,000 customers who are low income in the state of New Hampshire and making sure they get, you know, adequate communication around what the rates are. Maybe I've just gone from what was in the minutes. I didn't get a sense that this was a big issue for them.
Yeah, and I think you raised this issue when they were here the first time.
Yeah.
And
I raised the issue when I was on the board before we ever went live.
yeah,
And it was, I just don't see that they think it's in their wheelhouse, you know?
yeah, and I think there was some discussion, Jackson, of, well, we need to get that individual data from Eversource,
Yeah, we're in year 3,
the addresses.
you know, it's like, if they wanted that information and they went to the consumer advocate and says, we want that information because we want to do this with it to make sure our low income customers are aware of our rates, good or bad. Sometimes we're going to be, you know, but we think we have an obligation to do that. I just don't get the sense they're interested in it.
We can dig into that. I thought the response was though that they've tried and they've been told that's confidential information that they're not gonna share. We can dig more, but I don't necessarily think it's just they're not interested. I think they've requested it and they're not
Yeah.
getting it.
And how do you identify low income?
Well, there's a rate. Are you talking about the people that would be on the subsidized rate?
Yeah, they have that. And apparently they have the ability to ask the utilities for that. But I don't know. If it had been a big issue, they would have, or something that they really had tried, they would have brought it up at the first meeting, not come back to the second meeting to say, you know, this is what we're gonna do. But
Yeah.
regardless, and the low income customers are a bigger concern of mine. It's just everybody in general.
Sure.
The CPCH used to put the utility rate in the press release.
Yeah, and I think we should put it in.
Yes. They used to put the utility rate in the press release. And then this year, all of a sudden, it disappeared from their press releases. And I just, you know, they talk about transparency around costs. Yeah. I mean, the costs, the issue that they're in right now is self-inflicted because of, and they had lost $8 million even before that EAP, failed EAP. Last year, they lost $8 million. That was before that failed power purchase agreement. You know, and then they have to tap into reserves, lines of credit, and, you know, raise the rates. And they're patting their back on being transparent. Well, you're being transparent around, I mean, the costs are high because of, you know, decisions that they made.
It's hard for customers to get the whole story. I mean, the whole story is that they built up reserves for a while and then drained them and went negative. And customers are now getting a 14.6 or higher rate because of that. That's not a permanent state of affairs, but it's certainly going to be the 12 months of this year.
Yeah.
And I don't know how all of you feel, but I think what's our posture to our community? I think we have to be open and candid and say, these are higher than Eversource. And it's 14.6 versus 13.3 or 11.3, excuse me. And that's a $20 a month difference. And customers have the ability to opt out and come back later.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to, it's not like we're trying to lead people out of community power, but we should be, if they want to be high level, and I see their press releases kind of corporate speak around, we want to be transparent, this is a marathon, not a sprint. They've kind of become corporate in their press releases. And I think our press release should supplement that with some helpful information for our residents.
Right.
We wanted community power to be successful, absolutely. But we're going into, right now, we're going into our third rate period.
Yeah.
Not second, you have seconds.
You know,
third.
Yeah, and it was a smidgen over the first 3 rate periods back. And then it was a bigger increment over, and now it's a bigger increment.
Yeah, so this will be the third rate period we're higher, and it sounds like we're going to be, for vetting people, we're going to have a fourth. So we're going to have 2 years of rates being higher than default.
Yeah, 1.5. Yeah.
2
More,
years.
yeah, easily.
I
2
really,
years.
I really agree with Kevin. I think that it would be much better for us to kind of come out, and even if the community power as a whole doesn't want to do it, we can do it.
Mhm.
We can do it here in Portsmouth for our Portsmouth residents. We can say, we can explain what's going on and let them know that if they're financially under stress here, they should feel free to change to save money if they need it. Basically saying we want to give them genuine information to help them with their situation. And that's why we're the Portsmouth Energy Committee and not for the whole New Hampshire. And I think that will give us credibility with people in Portsmouth if they know that we're trying to be honest with them and direct and trying to act on their behalf. Versus trying to come up with, and we can explain why that rate is higher. We should. And community power should. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't give them good information like a consumer report would give you. Yeah, okay, this is here and this is there, but if you were trying to save money, you're better off right now doing this or that. And I think in some cases, some people might decide, I like the feel of being a part of community power. I still want to stay even if it costs me more. And others might say, hey, I really need to save some money and I could save $20 a month doing this. And I don't feel that I'm betraying community power by doing this because we're giving them permission.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we should still champion community power and articulate all the other things too.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think we have to go into great detail. It's just they're strengthening their financials and building up reserves and, hope to turn the corner this year. One of the beauties of this program is the ability to opt in and opt out.
Yeah.
Here's the rate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can word it in a way that sounds like we're still appropriately and, champions of community power, but not just do a drive-by on the ability to opt out. Sometimes that opt out kind of it's almost like a footnote, and you can always opt out. But I think we should maybe put a sentence or two around that.
Yeah, well, fortunately, Stephanie has a great deal of experience in public communication. And so she drafted the press release and then we worked on a part that said for another rate period, you're correct, 3.
We're going into the third.
Yeah, for a third rate period, CPC&H rates are higher than Eversource as they work to build prudent operating reserves. We know some residents can't afford higher utility prices right now, and they can opt out of community power to automatically default to Eversource and re-enroll in the future with no penalty.
Yeah.
And then we should say the Eversource rate is
11.3.
11.3.
Yeah, I think the press release was written well. I would include the Eversource rate in there, you know. And I would think, you know, if the consumer advocate and the PUC should require that the coalition include the utility rates in their press release too. The fact that that just kind of, you know, slipped out of their announcements, I think is not appropriate.
Well, maybe that's why we should take initiative ourselves to do something. And maybe this will push the coalition to do it in other towns. or
Put the
maybe
rate
as
in
a whole,
ours.
You know?
Yeah. We should definitely put it in our. I did.
Yes,
Look
okay,
at-
I have a couple questions. Can we go back to the board presentation the CPCNH has, please? I guess maybe these questions are rhetorical, but maybe Tom or John, you can help me understand a little bit here. Can we go to up some more, please? Maybe slide, what is it, 4?
That one.
3? Let's go to slide 3, the rate buildup.
Yeah.
All right, so if I'm looking at this right, just the supply itself plus the RPS. So supply and RPS is that's the rate itself. 109.25 plus 8, that's 117.25. That's already $4 over the Eversource rate without even taking the overhead and fixing the financials in the account.
$4 per
Megawatt hour. Yeah, it's a couple of it's still more expensive than the Eversource rate, which does include some overhead. So like, why do we think that CPCNH knows how to do supply well?
Well, I mean, I would say as far as like the purview of this committee, if you're suggesting that we leave CPCNH, I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not suggesting it. I'm trying to understand why they can't even beat the supply piece. Leaving the reserves out of it, leaving the overhead out of it, leaving everything else out of it. Why can't they beat the supply piece?
And historically, they've done pretty well.
If we come to the next slide, please. Not really sure I fully understand everything that's on this chart, but I'm reading the line piece where the hard black line was 0M or just $1M. That's 0. But right now we're negative 4.5 in the hole. Am I understanding that right? Just from a cash basis? At the end of UAP6, we're minus almost $5 million. So if the 3 lines going up, those are the different trajectories of the different rates, depending upon, what the percent probability of recovery is, or percentile, whatever it is. The green one, that's the P95. That puts us, highest likelihood. That puts us closer to the 60 days towards the end of 26. The blue one, which I think is the P50, that one puts us at around 40 days at the end of 26 of reserves and all that stuff. But the P5, I think the yellow, that keeps us, we're barely scraping by. And if you go across the chart at the bottom there, okay, I see revenues, I see cost of goods sold. Then there's gross margin, 17 to 21 million, depending upon what the forecast is. But the OpEx is only 4.5 million, and the net margin is still 12 to 16 million. That seems like a lot of money. But if you go to the next slide, sorry, maybe slide 8, please, or 8 or 9. So here's the cash flow statement for P5. This was the one that if we have a lower probability of getting, 5% of the collections. So here we going across here, just in January, our net cash flow is going to be negative 12 million. So we need to borrow 15 million from the line of credit just for January. Then we need to borrow another 10 million for February. And then we spend the, later part of the year kind of digging out of the hole that we're about to enter in the next 2 months. And that's a P5. If we go to the next slide, please. So again, we're entering the red just for, the beginning of this year, drawing on the line of credit and then paying it back over the course of the year.
February is on the old rate right now. It's on the 13 and change in February.
Which was above the Eversource rate.
Right.
Like to rebuild some of this financials.
Yeah.
We're still that far in the hole that we're in a negative operating balance, negative cash balance. That's concerning to me. It can't be the supply rate.
Yeah.
And we are gonna operate this year on a line of credit. That's concerning. Does anyone know what the assumed LSE interest fee is? What's the $2 million in the bottom left there? Because that comes off the top. It wasn't shown on the previous slide where they talked about, another fee. Does anyone know what that is?
I assume that's the line of credit.
All right. Well,
Service, something.
yeah, Tom, I'm not advocating for anything yet. I'm trying to understand, and I think I missed the December meeting. I apologize for that. I had a conflict, but I think back in November, I expressed a concern that I'm not yet convinced that they're doing the supply piece effectively and well. How do we know that? I mean, I see all the stuff around building reserves back, getting out of a line of credit. I get all that. But where do we see that they're doing a good job picking
Why?
supply?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that yet. So
Yeah.
anything that we can do to understand that better is going to give me more comfort. I'm still pretty concerned that I don't know if these guys are doing a good job.
I think the 1.2 interest and fees in the middle, I read somewhere yesterday that they paid over $1 million in interest on their not paying invoices on time.
The letter of credit from CalPoint,
No, not, they weren't paying their
their invoices.
invoices.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't know if
Calpine
it was just Calpine,
CalPoint had to float them.
but they got charged interest from their vendors for not paying.
Like,
I think it was like $1.2 million in interest charges on late invoices. So, well, I mean, they're trying to dig out.
Yep.
You have valid questions.
very valid.
Yeah.
Very valid.
Yeah.
You know, we have to couch this too in the regulatory environment where the 2 years after the coalition started, the New Hampshire PUC said to the utilities, you have to buy a 50% spot. Which means on the one hand, Eversource doesn't have to pay the risk premium to buy a 6-month contract. And the buyers built that risk premium in. But on the other hand, if there's a shortage of natural gas or a heavy cold spell or something, what that risk premium used to do was protect the ratepayers. Now the ratepayers would have to cover shortfalls in this because of this buying in the spot market. So I can't say because I'm not an expert, but I would think some of what CPC&H is paying is for stability.
Oh, yeah, they've got a big portion of their portfolio is hedged now, which is great because I think that's how they got into trouble before they weren't hedged.
So, this could all flip around if we have 0-degree weather for 2 weeks, or there's a energy shortage, and by law, home heating has to take precedence over electricity.
But the old process, though, that's what happened in the winter of 22-23, where all the utilities had rates in the 20s.
Mhm.
It's because they were out into the market in early December or whatever. Rates were incredibly high. And
So Don Crease is the consumer advocate saying, yeah, it looks like Eversource is saving people money. But he's saying, I'm very concerned as a consumer advocate about the spot market buying and how because that could come around in the future, and we could have, in some dire case, we'd let go of community power and then boom, the Eversource rates spike.
Hmm.
So,
So are they just managing a portfolio then for that other 50% that they're in the market?
It looks like they've got some naked positions in there. I don't know
Yeah.
whether it's forward or spot or what it is.
Yeah.
Just from.
'Cause I think they're doing 100% for the larger business customers.
yeah,
50% for residential and small commercial and 100% for the larger customers.
and
A little more price sensitive, make more stable, a little easier forecast too.
Yeah.
Maybe you can even do DR with them.
And are you on those, they have office hour, like a Q&A every Friday? Do you get those invites?
I don't think I do. I'm not sure I have time, but I'm
Yeah.
incredibly interested.
Well, I will bring it up because it's a really good question.
It's a good-
But if you ever wanna, I think it's every Friday, but I can forward the invite.
Tom, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Counselor, I was looking this morning on the PUC rate board and the for-profit aggregators in the state, like Keene and some of the other, there's a bunch of them now that are with profit aggregators. Rate is similar to Eversource's. But it's just a quick look at it, was 24-month contracts.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was like 11.2, 11.3. Keene, I think their basic rate right now is 11.2.
I think Ben's comment about is the community power able to at least equal or beat Eversource's supply price? If that's not possible, then we're gonna be always behind the 8 ball there.
yeah. And we don't know.
We don't know yet.
I checked in with the consumer advocate and researched a little bit, and he February of this year, quote, and consumer advocate stress his continued belief that in the long run, community power aggregation programs will prove a boon to residential electric customers. Before the widespread availability of community power aggregation, the only non-utility options available to residential customers were competitive suppliers marketing to people on an individual customer basis. In my expert opinion, said Don Creeth, electric customers do better when they combine their buying power. So that's where we're at right now. And
I do think there's going to be probably razor thin differences between community power and the utilities on a going forward basis.
Well-
I think some periods it could be a little bit less, a little bit more, but I don't see mathematically and from a market standpoint why there'd be necessarily big swings long term.
yeah, and our PUC has pushed as hard as they can to make the utilities to drive the lowest price and accept a high degree of risk.
Yeah.
So, is that the right solution?
One thing that we might benefit from, because this is an area where I think have most questions, is having someone from the risk committee from CPC&H and representative from Ascend kind of go over their portfolio, say the portfolio that led into February 1st, just to show, when they made procurements, how hedged they were, et cetera, and give us a comfort level of how they're, how they went about it. Because, because they're active, that committee is active, Tom, and, working with Ascend every month, making decisions around whether to purchase, not purchase, what sorts of hedges. I don't know, it might not hurt at some meeting to have, a couple of the experts from, CPC&H and maybe Ascend kind of dial into our meeting and kind of give us take our questions.
I can go to them. I mentioned that when they were here in October. So if there's a good opportunity for this kind of conversation that they're gonna have, I'm happy to show up and ask my questions if
Yeah,
it's
they have,
okay.
they have office.
Well, they have those office hours on Friday. Um. Yeah, the committee meetings probably aren't the forum, but we could figure out the right one.
But even outside of the office hours, maybe just a dedicated meeting on the
Yeah.
topic
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
whoever's the chair of the risk committee and, you know, they have a director now, don't they, of in the procurement space?
Well, that's, there's an open, they're interviewing now and they've got candidates.
But there's a point person from Ascend,
Yeah,
you know, you one-on-one
Can
meeting with
we
them.
conversation?
Yeah, maybe report back to our committee.
Well, thank you for entertaining
No,
my
I
questions.
share your concerns. Up in the middle of the night gnawing at thoughts about how this is going. It's our residents and that's their money and it. I did take a tour of how other towns and cities handled it. Concord just said, here are the new rates, here's the difference. Residential, $20 a month, here's the difference for commercial, whatever it was, boom, boom, boom. And here's how you opt out if you want to opt out. Very factual. It was like the Department of Energy's website. Dover was very low key. They did publish the Eversource rate. They wrote theirs in December before it was finalized with the PUC, but so what I'm hearing is we're watching carefully. We're gonna keep digging, see operationally how this is working. And in terms of our posture to the community, just say for the third rate period, Eversource is lower. And here's the difference, and here are the numbers, and here's how you opt out because some of us may not be able to handle higher utility bills.
I think, and some people may just do it on principle. It's like,
Yeah.
why am I
Sure.
paying?
one thing I think is still the case is if you've been in community power from when we started, you're still slightly ahead.
Right.
Right.
I don't think that's gonna be the case after this rate period.
Well, no, true, but I think so for the general public, right?
Yeah.
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 We said that
No,
last time in the
Yeah.
last press release, year, since launch, Portsmouth has saved X,
Yes.
but it'd
That's
be
been
interesting to get the math from CP.
Yes, I think we should.
What,
Whether we're ahead or behind.
if they've forecast this rate out through July, where's Portsmouth gonna be? And oh, by the way, where are we with these community reports? We're supposed to get, like monthly community reports. They said back in the November meeting, Jackson said they're, almost ready to roll with those, and I haven't seen. There was a commitment that they were supposed to provide community reports. I don't know if it was monthly or quarterly, and it hasn't
I
happened.
got a guy who does it. So
But-
his name May.
Scott May.
Scott May.
I mean,
Scott May works for them now.
Got a good laugh or a bad laugh?
He's a good guy.
But I mean, we should be,
Yeah.
they should be giving member communities more transparency around the financials relative to our own town.
Yes.
And that was an obligation, I thought, under the one of those member agreements that we signed.
Yeah, let's find out about that.
I think that gives you the rough total of what our savings are
Savings would
and
be,
et
yeah.
cetera. And it'd be interesting if they could tell us how many of our residents have signed up for notifications, because they kind of view that as their effort to communicate rates, is that you as a customer can go and sign up and you can click the box, I want updates on rate changes. I'd be interested to know how many Portsmouth customers are actually signed up for that notification. 'Cause I keep going back, the average customer, I mean, and nothing, the Portsmouth newsletter is wonderful, but, you know, how many people are actually getting that and reading that blurb in the Portsmouth newsletter and digesting it? You know,
Kevin, what do you think of the idea of saying everybody should be mandatedly sent that notification? And you can opt out of the notification if you don't want to see the rates.
yeah, I mean, they could, if they were interested, they could work with the PUC to have communications that's pushed to all 200,000 customers around their rate changes. They really could, you know. The consumer advocate would never settle for the utilities just issuing a press release and having a,
Does Eversource still send their supply rates? Do they send every 6 months? Do they notify? To me as a customer?
there's a on-bill notice
Yeah.
of the rate change, and they issue a bill inserts, and their press releases are picked up. Anytime utilities change their rates, it's like big news. So the media picks that up, but for some reason, the CPC&H press release gets kind of scant attention.
Yeah, the July one last summer did. That got some pretty broad coverage, but
I think because in their language, they were acknowledging some
they own some of
some
them.
issues, and the media that was kind of red meat.
Yes, as a former media person. Well, here's what I'm hearing is we'll put in this press release, as I said, what the Eversource rate is. We'll declare and make clear that this is higher than Eversource for the third time and explain how to opt out.
Did that includes an actual dollar amount to say, for the average household, like usually they say 650 kilowatt hours per month, you would be saving, or it would cost you this much more?
Yeah, it's $20, and that's based on 600?
600 kilowatt, yeah.
Because otherwise, just put the rate in there, people need to know what that dollar amount impact.
More efficient homes might only be $15 though, right?
There you go, that's a pitch for more efficient homes.
And just two other things that I think we could tack on eventually, whether it's not in the press release or in a subsequent, but the thing that CPC&H has to sign up for notifications. Maybe we can remarket that for them and others.
Yeah,
No, I think we should.
And then,
yeah. That's
because there's a box there for rate changes. And then the programs for Eversource, I think we should be marketing as well. They had in their press release the 5 programs to help with paying your bill and low income rates and budget plans and all of that. It wouldn't hurt for us to kind of market that to our residents.
Yeah, or maybe just a one sentence.
Does that apply to our customers though?
Absolutely.
Well, because they're Eversource.
Oh, because they're Eversource, yeah.
Is there a link that goes to all of that? Cause I
Yeah.
hesitate for the city to do Eversource's PR, but putting a link to where you'll find all that information would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not really their PR. I mean, they're offering, if you're struggling with bills, we could say that Eversource, they're
They're
they're the other half of everybody's bill in the town.
Right. Well, I think we
More than
should
half.
call out the fact that there are assistance programs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's like 5 different programs that, I mean, it just shows that we're interested in, if anybody is struggling with rates.
Yeah, I mean, I have thought to go to Craig Welch and say, is there a way you can notice all of your residents But fortunately, they're on another power plant, so they're all set.
Yeah.
You know, I've been thinking, how do we notice our low income people? I haven't got the answer to that.
Yeah, I think we should keep CPCNH you know, we should continue to push that a little bit, because if they genuinely wanted to make it happen with the PUC and getting support from the consumer advocate, they would get that information. They also can get email information. You know, we can ask for that. And they don't want CPCNH emailing necessarily on, you know, all sorts of stuff, programs and whatnot. But if they genuinely want it, I'm sure the PUC would support them emailing the 200,000 customers when there's a rate change.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things that they should do to push rate information, as opposed to have it be an Easter egg hunt for the 200,000 people to know that there's a rate change, as well as know what Eversource's rate is. It's an Easter egg hunt right now.
Okay, we want the press release to be timely, so maybe you and I can talk tomorrow about some changes.
I think it's very, very close, just with a little information.
Mhm.
And I wasn't sure if you wanted a hyperlink to other rates or not. Looks like DOE's got a pretty robust database that has a bunch of clicks. It's not an easy URL. If the idea is to have it be something that's more Eversource specific, because the service territory is here in Portsmouth, Eversource does have at least a link or two towards something that just shows those rates. So just for what it's worth.
Could you send those?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. More on that topic? Yeah, it's a little more challenging, more daunting. Flip on us this way. 123.
Tom, can I just ask, is within CPCNH, is there a sense that that concern over these
Oh,
low
yeah.
rates?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot, and it seems like there's not a lot of, you know, given the situation like we talked about a couple months ago, they don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
You know, to dig out of this, but yeah, there's a lot of concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the fun place it was when you were there. Saving everybody money this.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have members that are supportive. I mean,
Yeah.
they're,
And
people want them to be successful.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, if we communicate the ability to change,
Mhm.
then we've said this right from the get-go, there's really no downside with being a member of community
Right,
power.
right.
Right? Because there's other things that come along with it,
Mhm.
other than just the rates. You know, we got a seat at the table, you know, on energy
choice,
policies, blah, blah, blah. But, so as long as we're effectively communicating the ability to go in and out, then
Yeah.
having another choice is a darn good thing. It's just frustrating. We're gonna go on, looks like a 2-year
Hmm.
stretch of being higher than the utility.
yes, this year, it's particularly a big gap.
Yeah.
I don't know what Eversource will look like in the second rate period of the year, but
Yeah,
this
just,
year it's.
I mean, the second half of last year was pretty good delta as well.
Yeah,
11.2 to 13, whatever.
it looks like this year is gonna be also a volatile year for natural gas. Everywhere in the country. I mean, it's like people's utility bills are a problem, and we're gonna be affected by that too.
Well, we'll start just by being
Mhm.
as candid as we can with residents. Show them options,
Mhm.
some useful information.
Yeah, I don't think we should ever kind of go down the path that we made a poor decision. Community power, because that's not the case.
Yeah, right.
It's just, we need to, I think, be more, like you said, just continue to make sure people are aware of the ability to switch if they so desire.
Right. Well, I got excited when I saw that E95 case that we come out with 15 million in cash. If that happens, they're halfway to their.
Yeah.
And that would be great progress, but hopefully they dig out as fast as possible. Get off the line of credit, that's savings, that's lower rates.
Mhm.
I saw they're hiring a finance guy now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two priority positions are the executive director and essentially, just basing on his name.
CFO.
Yeah, the CEO, and the director of power operations, they call it.
Not a finance.
So those two, I think they're pretty far along on interviews and good candidates, and then the finance will follow that. So maybe by the end of February, they have all three of them on.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So that would be rebuilding that.
Were they using a search firm or were they doing it on their own this time?
No, I don't think they did have a search firm, but it was a national reach and they had, I forget, it was 80 plus for one of them, maybe the CEO. Or they don't call him CEO, is it executive director?
Executive director.
Well, thanks, Tom, for what you're doing for us.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else? Oh, there's a bill for Peter's portable solar making its way to the
Yeah, I
through the
noticed that.
legislature.
Yeah, so for those of you who missed the on-site visitation of my portable solar on my deck, except Betsy, she was the only one who showed up. The legislature of Utah was the very first in the country to codify a bill for portable solar, as they call it. And apparently this year now in New Hampshire, Senator Waters and Senator Avard, a bipartisan bill.
And
mind you.
Rebecca Perkins Coker.
Yeah, Republicans and Democrats. And I was surprised to see the sponsors because Senator Avard is the chair of that Science and Natural Resources Senate Committee. And Senator Waters is, I think, the minority leader. But in addition to that, there are two other Republicans and three other Democrats on there. So it's a bipartisan effort. And it's basically kind of laying out the same verbiage as the one in Utah. So this would be the second state, I think, in the union that has now if it passes, would have a bill to codify what that means. And it was interesting to see because, in the legislature, the first thing that happens is they have to ask for how much this is going to cost. And according to the Public Utilities Commission states this bill will result in indeterminable increases, but we'll definitely have at least $250,000 next year in costs. And then when the Department of Energy weighs in, they say states that the administrative responsibilities created by this bill fall within its existing workload and can be managed with current staff and resources. So $0. So there's a difference of opinion. And in fact, there shouldn't be any cost involved. I mean, I plugged mine in on my own because of this stuff has already been certified by all kinds of agencies throughout the country for all 50 states. We don't need to have a separate process. And, it's just like an appliance or something you plug in. Once it's allowed in every state, you don't need to spend money to allow it in your state. It is already allowed. So I'm very encouraged by the fact that this is going to happen. And I'm going to reach out to Senator Awad and Waters to say, if you guys want to have visitation of my panels in the snow, come on out.
Great.
So, yeah.
Have you tracked the performance?
Yeah, unfortunately I have, yeah. But the reason I say that is because I had no good location to put this in except my deck. And the orientation of the deck does not see much sun every day. So, and I knew that because I already have solar panels on my roof and they have the best location. And even though these panels are bifacial, you can get energy from both sides. It's a very bad location. But I wanted to find out how complicated and easy it is to set up and get going. So it is working. It's not generating a whole lot of energy though, in the way it's set up. So,
Yeah.
but the idea was to see, and I want to see how well it holds up in the snow.
Yeah,
And the
right.
winter and the storms.
Yeah.
Just plug it into the 110 outlet.
Yep, that's it. Now, it's got a built-in safety feature though, because you have to
Surge.
connect it to your breaker box. And it talks with Wi-Fi. The breaker box talks to the Wi-Fi of the app and talks to the panels. So within like 10 milliseconds, if the grid goes down, it shuts down. So that's already a safety feature throughout the country.
Fantastic.
So
I've read somewhere that some people are getting like 1/3 of their usage offset.
well, if you have a good location for it, you could, yeah. In fact, I'm wondering when you have both sides that get energy, maybe you want to set it up in west-east location. You get the morning sun, you get the evening sun, right? Because normally they set it up towards the west or so, or southwest.
And it's great for renters in apartments.
Well, that's the thing. The good thing about it is portable. So it comes, when it's delivered to you, it comes with these metal frames. If you want to set it up in your backyard, for example, it's portable. You can just move it to the backyard somewhere, the best location, set it up there, put it there. If that's the best place to put it, and just plug it in the outlet. That's it. So, and when you don't want it, you can take it in. Maybe you take it in the wintertime, bring it out in the springtime. I don't know, but and you can take it with you when you move. You know, it's not part of your house. So,
It's awesome.
You know, if you have another one, I had a conflict, but I would love to see that.
Yeah,
well, luckily for me too, the solar credit that was available this year applied to this as well. So it cost me $20,000 for a 800-watt 4 panels, and I get a 30% credit, solar credit on my taxes. But it's no longer available this year, so.
right,
Anyway.
right. Just looking ahead, we'll get you a meeting schedule, but it's the first Wednesday of the month. And we take August off. And I'm thinking, well, we've already got one item we're gonna talk about in February, but also I thought we could do some goal setting and sort of have our start of the year, start of the term meeting. We wanted to get this press release out at this time.
Counselor, can I ask, has our name changed? Do we have the same name as a committee?
And then March, hopefully, we can get an update on Jones Avenue. Let's see.
Do we have like a role to play on that project, or are we just kind of monitoring or getting updates? What do you see our role being?
There's a lot more knowledge in this committee than on the council. So, you know, we're the council looking to this group to shepherd the process with Apex. You know, we've got a good project manager in Christie, and we've got a good contractor to develop the options for us. Hopefully we'll have a lot to dig into.
Great. I don't think we did the minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We didn't.
Oh, thank you. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? Motion?
Motion.
Okay. Second. Okay. Favor? Right. Anything else for the good of the effort? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Stephanie, I did receive your email.